settlers in the West Bank, they've carved out huge swaths of territory in the West Bank, and that it's no longer possible for there to be a full Israeli withdrawal. And so we should stop talking about two states and start talking about one state. That's the basic argument. As for my own opinion, if you ask my personal opinion, I'm not for two states, I'm not for one state, I'm for no states. That's my political view, my ideological point of view. I don't think states make much sense, especially in my personal case, because I tend to travel a lot and I'm always losing my passport. So for very idiosyncratic reasons, I would like to eliminate states. But as everybody here will agree, it's not on the historical agenda yet to eliminate states. And sometimes it seems perfectly rational to eliminate them, but that doesn't mean it's politically possible. For example, rationally, I don't think there's any sense to that border between the United States and Mexico, because we stole half of Mexico, and half of Mexicans now live in the United States. So, if we're asking rationally, should there be a border? The answer, it seems to me, is no. And would it spare a lot of suffering of Mexicans if we eliminate the border? The answer is clearly yes. But is it on the political agenda? I think the answer is quite obviously no. And so the same question arises in the case of Israel-Palestine. What is on the political agenda? And I don't see any significant support in the international community. I don't see any significant support among Israelis. I don't even see significant support among Palestinians for one state. And so then the question becomes, is it two states or eternal conflict? I think there are, without going into the details, it is possible to resolve the conflict along the lines of a full Israeli withdrawal. Though there will have to be significant negotiations, but I think it's possible.
Hello, thank you. First of all, thank you for speaking the truth. I would like to know, sorry, you were talking about Mr. Goldberg. Goldstone, sorry. As being a Zionist, I myself have a vague idea what Zionist is, but it seems to me like he's in one of the few exceptions, not the rule. Because on one thing you were talking about earlier, that you got the Israeli soldiers speaking there was terrible things that were being done, and on the other side you said like 60% even after the battle was over, or the so-called war, they still wanted to, the average Israeli wanted to attack, destroy Hamas. And I'm just wondering, what is the real, on the average Israeli, the real political thinking on there? And the last question is just your personal opinion. Has Israel simply become just a warlike nation? I mean, that's the only response it seems to get to whatever political issue it has. Thank you.
Well, maybe I could easily have been misunderstood in what I said, so I'm going to try to restate it with greater clarity. When I was referring to most Jews being liberal and not being able any longer to justify what Israel is doing, I was referring to Jews living outside Israel. Israel politically is moved very far to the right. In fact, it's almost a mirror image of the United States, where Jews in the U.S. overwhelmingly vote Democratic, and it's about 20% or less who are Republican. And in Israel, it's just the reverse. The Labour Party, which is supposedly a liberal, and it's about 20% now, the spectrum has moved. But among non-Israeli Jews, it's quite obvious that, especially among the younger generation, 35 and under, if you look at the polls, there's a lot of scholarship, a lot of literature that shows that the younger Jews, the expression that's used is they're distancing themselves from Israel. For an obvious reason. You just can't defend it any longer. There was a report I was reading the other day, and it said the best argument of young Jews on college campuses when they're trying to defend Israel, the best argument they can come up with is, quote, well, Israel doesn't really suck. That's not what you call a winning argument. It's not going to mobilize popular support. So there's clearly a loss of support among younger Jews. As to the second question you asked, Israel has always, its guiding philosophy has always been that the Arabs only understand the language of force, and that periodically you have to break their skulls to remind them who's in charge. That's just been their attitude. They've never really, unless they're forced to, they've never really believed in diplomatic resolutions of a conflict. They believe that you have to, every once in a while, take out the big club and crack a few skulls. The problem is that apart from being immoral, it's now becoming very dangerous, because there are the beginnings of changes, of shifts in power in the Arab world. So, for example, you take the case of this fellow who I mentioned earlier, Sheikh Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, the party of God, and he gave, Sheikh Nasrallah was quite popular in the Arab world, among the Arab people. And his popularity, it stems from only one fact, that there's an exact correspondence between what Mr. Nasrallah says and what he does. There's no daylight between what he says and what he does. Now, a few weeks ago, Mr. Nasrallah gave a speech. There was only one person here, I noticed, from Lebanon. Anyone else from Lebanon here? Oh, okay. So, after the last Israeli devastation in Lebanon, the Hezbollah, presumably Iranian money, they significantly rebuilt the areas of Israel destroyed. In particular, the area that's called Gadahia, the southern suburb of Beirut. And it's been rebuilt, and it's apparently, I'm told, it's quite beautiful now. Well, Mr. Nasrallah went on, gave one of his speeches. He's given the Speechifying, and his speeches are actually quite informative. And in one of his last speeches, he said, directing himself to Israel, if you attack Beirut again, we're firing missiles in Tel Aviv. If you destroy, again, Marta Rafik Hariri International Airport, we're destroying Ben Gurion Airport. And if you destroy our port, we're destroying Haifa. Well, that's not a reason to be gleeful. On the one hand, I can understand that. And frankly, I respect it. Israel has leveled Lebanon one time too many. It invaded in 1978, Operation Litani, killed about 2,000 Lebanese. It invaded in 1982, Operation what it called Peace in Galilee, killed between 18 and 20,000 Lebanese and Palestinians, overwhelmingly civilians. It invaded in 1993, Operation Accountability, invaded again in 1996, Operation Grapes of Wrath. It occupied South Lebanon